Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Raven Renee. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, thanks for joining me once again. So today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to be intentional about growing. This is something that is just super close to my heart. I'm so big on intentionality and also just personal development, becoming who God has called you to be and continuously making strides towards that. And so I do want to mention that we're always growing, and whether you're growing up or you're growing down, you're always growing. And that's determined by you. It's up to you how you grow. And so that's kind of the first thing that I want to get us in a mindset of thinking about, is really taking ownership of that process. Rather, you can say managerial status, because I believe that God is the owner, right? But He's given us authority. And one of the most amazing things that He's given us is choice. And so what you do, it's a choice that you make. And everything is an intentional decision that you make, whether you see it as that or not, but it's still a decision that you make. And you have to be intentional and make the decision to grow upwards and to move forward into who God has called you to be. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And this isn't some easy 1, 2, 3 step, because we're talking about life here, and life is not easy, and life is a journey, and it's full of processes, and all of ours are different. And I'm going to be sharing what God has been instilling in me to do, what's become just a part of my everyday life, and things that He's taught me. And so, in the information that I'm going to be sharing, I just hope that this can be, helpful to someone out there as well on their journey. So, I'm gonna start, and the first thing that I want to share, which kind of already goes into what I've been talking about, is that this is where I always start, is looking inward. It's important to always look at yourself first, really to check yourself, because how can you judge someone else or look at someone else if you can't even see what's in your own eyes, see your own faults? And so I believe that it's always important to look at yourself first, check yourself, ask God to check you, and really be introspective and really ask yourself, like, okay, what could I have done better? How could I have communicated something better? How could I have responded better? And even with asking yourself this question in every, just interaction that you need to, it may not necessarily be a situation where you were in the wrong, right? But I believe that you can always improve and you can always be better. So it may not be that you handled a situation wrong or incorrectly, but there's always some improvement. You could always, maybe responded better, um, or whatever it is. So I think that it's always just important to look at yourself first, basically, because, it starts with you. So you always want to do that. And so the next thing that I want to share, which has transformed my life completely, is studying the Bible, not just reading it. I'm going to say, I'm not a reader. I don't like to read, but I do study the Bible. And that has made such a difference in my life. And God has really used His word, to truly transform my life. And I believe that that's what really studying the Bible does compared to just reading it. Because you can read something and, okay, I'm going to the next thing, I'm going about my day, and it doesn't really soak in. But when you study the Bible, I believe that it becomes a part of you. It transforms your life, and it transforms your character, your faith, your trust, how you interact with others, how you see yourself, how you see God, how you see others, how you interact with others. And so it really just infiltrates every area of your life and your heart, and can really help to bring about that transformation that you need. And so yes, I would definitely recommend studying the Bible. And it's not about how much you read, it's not about the amount of time that you read or study. It's not about that. It's about allowing God to speak to you and allowing the word to transform you and to soak in so that you can apply it to your everyday life. That's what it's about. And so, yes, I would recommend studying the Bible. I study and have Bible study. I do 2 chapters every week. And so I may read it, listen to it, allow God to speak to me, and then, have Bible study with my friend and see what God has spoken to her and what she's getting out of it, and we can share with each other. But, and so that also is helpful. But honestly, even if you just, do Bible study by yourself, just allow God to speak to you and allow it to really, soak in. And so, yeah, that's so important. And so the next thing that I want to share is to not have too many voices in your ear and to always go to God first. There's nothing wrong with the community, right, that God has for you. And there's nothing wrong with taking heed to wisdom. But I think that it's so important to just know and remember that all wisdom and true wisdom comes from God, and He will give it to you if you ask for it. And so, nobody's voice in your life, not your pastors, not your parents, not your spouse, not your friends, not even your own personal voice. Nobody's voice in your life should be bigger, louder, or have more weight than God's. And also, I think it's important to use discernment in the voices that you are listening to. Because, it's important to guard your ear gates and your eye gates, what you're intaking, and also to guard your heart, meaning to use wisdom in every area of your life. Because what you take in, and what can get in your heart can really influence the course of your life. And so you really just want to make sure that God's voice is the loudest and the most clear voice to you, and to truly seek Him above anything or anyone else. And so the next thing that I want to share is that it's important to make the changes. Like, it's one thing to want to change or to want to be intentional about these things, right? But you actually have to put forth the work to make the changes, because especially once you're aware of something, now you're responsible. Now you're held responsible for what you know and making the changes. And so you have to, again, take ownership and be intentional about moving forward. You don't want to be passive. And so this also goes with, taking the time, because, things may not happen overnight. Like I said, life is a journey, and you hopefully won't ever stop improving and moving towards who God has called you to be. And so it's going to take time, so you don't want to get down on yourself or be discouraged because something's not happening. Also, you don't want to use time as a crutch, thinking that you have just all this time to get it right, because you don't know, right? But you want to just take advantage of the time that you do have and be intentional with the time that you have, right? Because you don't want to delay. And so you want to make sure to just take the time to be intentional about your growth and moving forward. And so the next thing that I want to share is that it's important to just be obedient, and take heed to the convictions that God has given you, and to yield to the Holy Spirit. This is something that has made such an impact in my life. Believing that God has always spoken to me and led and guided me, but it's important to really yield to the Holy Spirit and listen to those promptings, not just because you don't want to ever dismiss God. And so you don't want to dismiss or sweep under the rug things that God is sharing with you, or convictions that He's giving you, or promptings that the Holy Spirit is giving you. You don't ever want to dismiss those things. And so it's important to just be obedient and go forth in action towards the things that God is telling you to do, because that is literally Him leading you and guiding you and placing you in position. And so the next thing that I want to suggest is really just welcoming and more so asking for God's correction. Because asking for God's correction, again, it puts it on you. Like, granted, yes, God will correct you. But I also think it's important to really ask for the correction if you're being intentional about growing. Like just asking Him, like, God, correct me. Show me where I went wrong. Show me what I need to do. How can I be better? Who do I need to reach out to? Like, whatever it is, like actually asking for God's correction, for Him to correct your thoughts and your motives, your intentions. That is something that is so important, because God will correct you. And I think just taking the humble stance of just asking for God's correction, I think it just helps to put you in position to just yield to the Holy Spirit in that way. And so the next thing that I also want to share is something that I do every once in a while, which is ask your trusted community if there's any ways or any area that you can grow in or get better in, whether it's in terms of like communication or anything else. And so, like I said, this is something that I ask every once in a while, because I believe that God gives community. He gives divine connections and places people in your life, and those are people that you do life with. And so if you're being intentional about your growth and growing in Him, I believe that the fruit of the Spirit will develop. And one of the things about the fruit of the Spirit is that they will show, they are evident in your life. And so, others should see that. You should exude the fruit of the Spirit, and those should be evident in all your interactions. And so if they are, people should be able to witness to those things, especially the people that you're doing life with. And so that's why I do think it is important to ask them every once in a while, like, okay, how can I get better? What are you seeing? But again, this is, your trusted community that you're asking. And so the next thing that I want to share is to change your perspective. Because we don't want to have a perspective of wanting to just be comfortable, wanting to be stagnant or not grow, or grow downward rather, or have a perspective of, oh, nobody can tell me what to do, or just thinking that you know it all or anything like that. You don't want to have any of those perspectives. And so you want to have a growth mindset, and you want to have a positive perspective. And the positive perspective part is something that God has really worked in me, especially like, I would say like the beginning of this year, of not looking at something as like, oh, well, this is happening to me, but rather it's happening for me, and it's an opportunity to really exercise what God has been instilling in me. And so having that positive perspective is not easy. Like anything that I've shared here, it's not easy, because life isn't easy. And so, it's all a part of the process. All this stuff, it's like it takes pruning. God will prune you. He will mold you. He will lead and guide you. And, it doesn't feel good all the time. Like, and this goes to my last point that I will share is that you don't want to get too comfortable. You have to stretch yourself. Even physically, they talk about growing pains, because it means that you will be uncomfortable at times. And so, you don't want to be in a place where you just feel like you have to be comfortable because you don't grow in your comfort zone. In order to grow, you have to be uncomfortable, you have to stretch. And so, that's one thing, because I think just as people, we can want to be in our comfort zones and things like that. But if you're wanting to be intentional about your growth, um, then God will stretch you. He will expand your capacity. He will require more of you. And that doesn't always feel good, and it's not going to be comfortable, right? Because sometimes it's going to be like uncharted territory for you. It's going to be something new. But you're going to grow from it, and you're just continuing to get closer to be who God has called you to be. And it's for your good, So even if it doesn't feel good, it's for your good if it's from God. So that is what I have to share about how to be intentional about growing. Those are things that God has had me doing in my life, a part of just my everyday life, and things that He has me doing on my journey. So I hope that this helped you all, that maybe you can implement some of these things in your journey. And so, yeah, if y'all like the video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and be sure to subscribe for more videos. So I love y'all. Bye.